Risks and mitigation. In video number 1, the introduction, we looked at what this series is intended to achieve and give back to you for your support on this channel. Now we look at the risks and mitigation techniques when mounting cameras on aircraft. It is so important not to take risks and to make sure everything is as good as it can be. Have the foresight to anticipate issues that may occur and fix them as soon as you recognize them. I often find the more cameras that we have to deal with, the more distractions, the more problems that we have. Who hasn't had problems with cameras in flight? Or even just trying to get off the ground, trying to get away from, trying to get going, trying to get started. Cameras that won't go, cameras that lock up, freeze. So here it is, in-flight cameras, the hazards and being safe.
This video was brought to you by you because you subscribed. Thank you so much.
Some of the risks we may experience include camera loss, which equals financial loss. You don't want a financial loss. A financial loss means it's cost you money, and now you're going to have to go and buy another camera. So, in terms of camera loss, we could be talking about dropping a camera from the aircraft. That's because your bracket failed and you didn't have any way of mitigation or making the camera safe. Another problem with dropping a camera from the aircraft is it might go through the propeller, particularly when the propeller is on the rear of the aircraft, as in my case. That is not an option. That will lead to a very bad day. The next thing I want to talk to you about with risks is cockpit distractions. The more cameras we have, the more distractions we have. It is important to remain vigilant as a pilot and to always fly the aircraft first. A camera distraction will only take your eyes off the ball and you will not have a good day as a result if things go wrong there. The next one we want to talk about is electrical dangers and charging in flight. You don't want to fire, that would be the worst case scenario. But if the cameras aren't charging, they will go flat. So make sure that they are connected correctly, that the wiring is not going to get tangled in something, which we'll get to in a minute, and that there's no risk that the wire is going to be damaged in such a way as to cause a short circuit, and if it is, then hopefully there's a circuit breaker or fuse that will fail and cause the circuit to lose power. And as I said, the next one is cable and camera fouling in flight. You don't want flight controls or anything like that tangling with cable. Again, it's just something to be very cautious of and make sure that we pay particular attention to when we're installing cameras and cabling. The last risk item I want to talk to you about is the effect of cameras and brackets on aircraft aerodynamics. Now, I hadn't thought of this one initially, but I do often take that into consideration when I'm installing a camera on the aircraft. Putting a camera on the wingtip will lead to some sort of yawing effect if there's enough drag. It doesn't matter how big the camera, in fact, there will always be some sort of drag, whether it's something that's not really that big a concern or it is a concern, is what you have to decide. Play it safe and make sure you're not going outside the risk area. Can you hear that bird? No, it's not doing it. The next thing we want to talk about is mitigation. We'll get to that in a second. And that's just strapped on with a bracket. It's very secure, and again there is also a tether to the actual bracket. So we've talked about the risks and the hazards and things that make an aircraft unsafe when we mount cameras and install cables and brackets to them. Now the thing is, we can mitigate a lot of these things to some degree, not 100%, but we can try. And it's important to do as much as possible in this area. So the first thing we want to do as a mitigation, make sure you pre-flight the photographic equipment. So my routine is typically to mount the cameras and make sure everything's working properly, and then pre-flight the whole aircraft from that point. Do the normal aircraft pre-flight, but also check the cameras. Make sure everything is secure and it's not going to get blown off, it's not going to fall off, and it's not going to cause you heavy distractions during the flight. And just on that, again, secure mounting. Make sure your brackets are good. Make sure that they're not going to wobble around and potentially come loose. Remember that aerodynamics and the amount of wind pressure on some of these brackets is enough to cause things to change during the flight. A way of mitigating camera loss and bracket failure is tethering the camera. Now the thing is, tethering's all good, you won't lose your camera, it won't fall off the aircraft. Excuse those birds in the background. However, the fact that they haven't fallen off the aircraft and still remain tethered to the aircraft means they will flap around in the breeze. If you're doing 70 to 100 knots and there's a camera flapping around, that's not going to end well either. So again, the best policy is security. Make sure they're not going to come off in the first place. And of course, then there's the other thing of managing camera operations. In other words, before you start, make sure everything's working, everything's not going to become a distraction, and that everything is easy to use during the flight, because you don't want to be distracted trying to fix a camera issue while you're trying to land the aircraft because you wanted to film the landing. Worst time for that to happen. And don't forget, you've still got to watch out for other aircraft, and you've still got to make sure you do all your correct flying procedures, especially when you're in the circuit departing an airfield or arriving at an airfield. Do not let the cameras rule your life. In the next video, we're going to have a look at some of my recent photographic equipment do-it-yourself projects. I'll show you what I've been doing. Some things have worked, some things haven't worked, and many of the things I am using these days. Now you can see I'm in my shed. This is where we'll be building brackets, which will also be coming up in future episodes. There's already probably, I think, 1 or 2 episodes in this playlist on the channel now that you might want to watch if you haven't seen already. But these brackets are designed to be easy and simple to construct. There is nothing special about them. They're meant to be just ways that I've found to be able to secure a camera, and also ways to show you to make them as safe as I could think of anyway. Anyway, the next video, watch out for that one, some recent projects that I've created, and we'll see you then, probably, and there'll be other videos in the meantime too. Thanks for watching, and bye for now. So before you go next committing aviation, here are 2 videos I thought you'd enjoy in the meantime until the next episode.